Rosarium Philosophorum, by Arnald de Villanova. Let those who desire to attain the truest knowledge of the greater science of the philosophical art diligently peruse this small volume and read it over frequently, and they shall achieve their prosperous and wished-for desire. Listen to these things, you children of the ancient philosophers. I shall speak in the loudest and most elevated voice I can command, for I come unto you to reveal and declare the principal state of human affairs and the most profound treasure among all the secrets of the entire world. I shall not do so with deceit or error, but altogether plainly and truthfully. Therefore, grant me such devotion in your hearing as I shall bring unto you in the magistery of doctrine and wisdom. For I will present a true testimony of those things which I have seen with my own eyes and felt with my own hands. There are many men who are overly presumptuous, acting as deceitful boasters who, after great expense and labor, discover no result but misery. I will, therefore, speak plainly and manifestly, so that the uninitiated, as well as those who are expert and skillful, shall be able to comprehend the secret of this mystery. Nor shall any man justly direct slanderous and blasphemous words against me. Seeing that the ancient philosophers have written so obscurely and confusedly that they are not understood, nor do they seem to agree with one another, and because various men searching for this most precious art have been either deceived or frightened from their purpose, I will, therefore, without any deceit or obscurity, plainly set down the true experiment before your eyes. This shall be accompanied by the opinions of the philosophers, serving our purpose well, so that the matter of which we treat may be manifest and plainly understood. First, we must note that all men who operate beyond the bounds of nature are deceivers and work in an unlawful manner. Furthermore, from man nothing is born but man, and from a brute beast nothing but a brute beast. Every entity brings forth nothing but its own likeness. Therefore, he who does not possess his own cannot, at his pleasure, claim another man's. We state this so that no man should heedlessly part with his wealth. For certain men, having been deceived into squandering their money and thus living in penury, also endeavor to seduce others and bring them to a similar misery. My counsel is that no man be overly presumptuous in this art in the hope of attaining some great outcome, unless he understands the origin of true nature and its regimen. Once this is known, there is no need for more than a single thing, nor does it require immense expense, because it is one stone, one medicine, one vessel, one regimen, and one disposition. Know this, it is a most true art. Furthermore, the philosophers would never have labored and studied to articulate such a diversity of colors and their specific sequence unless they had personally seen and felt them. Wherefore, we state again that all men laboring beyond nature are both deceivers and deceived. Let your exercise and labor, therefore, be conducted within nature, because our stone is of an animal, of a vegetable, and of a mineral substance. Be therefore of a single mind and opinion in the work of nature, and presume not to attempt one thing now and another later. Our art is not achieved through a multitude of things. Although its names may be diverse and manifold, it is always a single entity, derived from one thing. For nothing is introduced into nature which, being within it, is not of its own nature. Therefore, it is necessary that the agent and the patient be one thing, the same in kind or in general, yet in species distinct and diverse, according to the mercury by which the woman is differentiated from the man. Although they agree in a single kind, they possess a distinct difference between them, much as matter and form differ. Matter receives action, whereas form operates and renders the matter like unto itself. Consequently, matter naturally desires form, just as the woman desires the man, and the foul desires the fair. Thus, the body embraces the spirit more freely so that it may arrive at its perfection. Therefore, by understanding the natural roots, you shall more effectively conduct your work with them. Because I cannot express or explain our stone in any other way, nor designate it by any other name, it is manifest from what has preceded that our stone is compounded of 4 elements. Both the rich and the poor possess it, and it is found in every place. It is likened unto all things and is equally compounded of body, soul, and spirit, being altered from nature into nature even to the ultimate degree of its perfection. They have also stated that our stone is made of one thing, and this is true, for the entire magistery is accomplished with our water. That water is the sperm of all metals, and all metals are resolved into it, as has been declared. Likewise, the salt of metals is the stone of the philosophers, for our stone is a water congealed into gold and silver. It resists the fire and is resolved once more into the water of which it is inherently compounded. Therefore, the reduction of bodies into their first matter, such as into living silver, is nothing other than a resolution of the congealed matter, whereby a lock is opened through the ingression of one nature into another. Whereupon, the philosophers have declared that the sun is nothing but ripened living silver. In Mercury, there are but 2 elements in act, namely earth and water, which are passive. Conversely, the active elements, such as air and fire, exist in that might and power solely because they are brought from potentiality into actuality within pure Mercury. Following due digestion and proportionate decoction, gold is then produced. Consequently, there are 4 elements in gold, rendered fit in equal proportion. Therefore, ripe and active sulfur is present there. Our art assists nature by ministering ripe gold to Mercury, within which lies ripe and well-digested sulfur, yet it proceeds from nature through the work of nature. Arnoldus. Whosoever would attain the knowledge of this art and is not a philosopher will prove himself a fool, because this science belongs exclusively to the secrets of the philosophers. Senior. This art is reserved within the power of God and remains an enemy to the layperson. Geber. Therefore, this art is not necessary for poor and needy men, but is rather an enemy unto them. Aristotle in the 2nd book of his Politics. It is impossible for a poor man to be a philosopher. There is a 2-fold path in this art according to the philosophers, that is, universal and particular. The universal way is easy and rare. It is that which is brought forth from true and natural beginnings, whereby a rapid and reformative virtue presently and instantaneously hardens mercury, tincturing any duly prepared metal into true gold or silver. The second way, however, is called the particular, and it is arduous and laborious. Note this well. Although alchemy in the universal way is partly natural and partly artificial, it remains predominantly natural. By nature, no strange or foreign substance is introduced into the path of true alchemy. Nature possesses the necessary material upon which to work because active elements are joined to passive ones through a competent union and application, while nature accomplishes the remainder of the work by herself. Plato. Our stone is a thing which has not touched the fire, nor has the fire touched it, from which our mercury arises. There are 3 sorts of laborers according to the art of alchemy, that is, the alchemist, the lochemist, and the lachrymist. Not everyone who says take, shall enter into this art, because it consists of but a single receipt, and one body does not enter into another. Gratianus. Take this, and do thus, and thus, and you shall have this, and this is a common practice among all philosophers. Whereupon the philosopher said, the first word, take, has caused many errors. Therefore, the primary work is to dissolve the matter of the stone, that is, not common mercury. Arnoldus. Fools who interpret the maxims of the philosophers purely according to the letter discover no truth, and they declare it to be a false science because they have tested it and found nothing, and subsequently they become as desperate men, condemning this science and disparaging its treatises, and therefore the science holds them in low esteem, because our science of the secrets of nature possesses no enemy save the ignorant, according to these verses following. This stone is held in scant regard by men of slender wit, but yet the wise and learned sort make great account of it. Aufidius. Know this, that God hath not ordained this stone of which this great secret treats to be purchased at a great price, for it is discovered cast upon the path, and may be acquired as readily by an impoverished man as by a wealthy man, so that every man may attain it through reason and knowledge. Living silver is not the stone, whereupon Constantinus states, because it is fusible, therefore it is not the stone. Living silver is fire, whereupon the philosopher declared, know therefore that living silver is fire and burns bodies more fiercely than fire. We are the beginning and the primary nature of metals. Art by our means fashions the supreme tincture. There is no fountain nor water to be found that is akin to me. I heal and aid both the affluent and the destitute, but yet I am replete with noxious poison. The juices of lunaria, aqua vitae, fifth essence, spirit of wine, mercury vegetable are entirely one. The juice of lunaria is formulated from our wine, a truth known to but a few of our disciples, and with it our solution is achieved, and our potable gold is created, that being the instrument thereof and cannot exist without it. For the imperfect body is converted into the first matter, and those waters being conjoined with our water yield a single pure and limpid water, purifying all things and yet containing within itself all requisite things. And this water of which and with which our magistery is accomplished is simultaneously precious and inexpensive, for it dissolves bodies not by means of a common solution as the ignorant purport, which converts the body into cloudy water, but by the true philosophical solution, wherein the body is transmuted into its primordial water of which this very same body has been constituted from the beginning. That is, the water transforms bodies into ashes. But understand this, that the art of alchemy is a gift of the Holy Ghost, and recognize that in our era we have beheld Master Arnald de Villanova at the Roman court, an eminent physician and theologian, who was equally a notable alchemist, forging small ingots of gold, which ingots he permitted to be subjected to any assay. Arnoldus. Let the practitioners of alchemy understand this, that the forms of metals cannot be transmuted unless they are reduced to their first matter, and then they are transmuted into a form distinct from that which they previously possessed. And that is because the corruption of one entity is the generation of another, in artificial constructs as equally as in natural phenomena. For art imitates nature, and in certain respects it corrects and surpasses it as nature is assisted by the diligence of the physician. The mirror. Therefore, employ nature properly, because nature cannot be amended save within its own nature, unto which you must introduce no foreign substance, neither powder nor any other element, because diverse natures do not perfect the stone, nor does anything enter into it which has not originated from it. For if any alien or strange substance is introduced into it, it is immediately corrupted, and that which is sought shall not be attained. Whereupon, I give you to understand that, unless you take homogeneous substances at the inception of the decocting and guide them subtly until they are entirely rendered into water, till then you have not discovered the work. Wherefore, I shall unveil the precious secret unto its students, that they shall not be wearied in vain, because this magistery is nothing other than to decoct living silver and sulfur, until the living silver is unified, which defends the sulfur from burning provided the vessel is securely sealed, so that the living silver may not vanish away nor the sulfur be burnt or consumed, because our living silver is our pure water. And we observe this example in common water, that everything which is decocted within it is never burned until the water is consumed and the fire becomes exceedingly fierce, and when the water is exhausted, then that which resides in the vessel is burned. And therefore the philosophers have instructed us to stop the mouth of the vessel tightly, so that our blessed water may not evaporate, but that it may shield the contents of the vessel from combustion. For water being combined with these elements forbids the fire from burning them, and subsequently those things are perfected and accomplished. And the greater the flame is, yet so much more deeply are they concealed within the inward parts, that they remain unharmed by the heat of the fire. The water receives them into its belly and repels the flame of the fire from them. But I would counsel all seekers of this art, at the commencement to maintain a gentle fire, until patience is established between the water and the fire, and once you perceive the water to be fixed without any ascension, then you need not concern yourself with the intensity of the fire, but yet it is prudent to govern it with patience, until the spirit and the body are made entirely one, so that the corporeal bodies are rendered incorporeal, and the incorporeal are rendered corporeal. Therefore, water is the agent that renders substances white and red. It is the water that kills and revives. It is the water that burns and heats. It is the water that dissolves and congeals. It is the water that putrefies and subsequently causes new and contrary entities to spring forth. Wherefore, my son, I advise thee that all thy labor and diligence be dedicated to the decocting of the water. And let this process not be irksome unto thee if thou desirest to reap its fruit and concern thyself with no other vain matters, but solely with the water. Decoct that water by degrees, putrefying it until it is transformed from an imperfect hue into a perfect color, and take heed that in the beginning you do not scorch its flowers and verdure, and be not overly hasty in bringing your work to fruition, and remember that your door must be well and firmly shut, so that he who resides within may not escape, and thus by the grace of God you shall achieve the desired effect. Nature performs her operations little by little, therefore, I desire that you should act in like manner, yea rather let your imagination accord with nature, and observe according to nature, through which bodies are naturally regenerated within the bowels of the earth. Conceive of this through a true imagination and not a fantastical one, and similarly observe the color in which their decoction manifests, whether it be violent or pleasant. Geber, of the Investigation of Truth, we have deliberated in our volumes upon the secret and natural powers and upon the properties of natural phenomena, and through our own experience in the invention of seeking out a definitively certain matter, we have discovered nothing else save those elements from which our medicine is formulated, so that it may possess these inherent properties in the transmutation of bodies. First, that it may contain a most subtle earth within itself, and incombustible and apt to fix any substance with its own radical moisture. Secondly, that it may possess an airy and fiery moisture uniformly conjoined, so that if one is volatile the remainder may be likewise, and because that moisture above all other moistures endures all other moistures, unto the accomplishment of this sufficient thickness of ashes precisely to the extent of its necessity, with an inseparable permanency of the annexed earth without evaporation. Thirdly, because the natural disposition of moisture is such that by the benefit of its homogeneity it possesses in all differences of its properties an annexed earth through the mutual conversion of them both, because in the homogeneity of either of them it is virtuously tempered with an inseparable bond of conjunction, and following the degree of final preparation it yields an excellent melting. Fourthly, that this homogeneity possesses such immaculate purity of essence and is artificially refined from all combustible and burnt substances, that all things which are conjoined with it are not consumed by it, but it preserves them from incineration. Fifthly, because it contains a clear and radiant tincture within itself, white, red, pure, incombustible, stable, and fixed, which neither the fire is able to alter nor burnt sulfurs or harsh corrosives are able to corrupt. Sixthly, because the entirely engrafted compound with its final accomplishment is of such subtlety and tenuity of substance, that after the final injection at the culmination of its decoction, it remains of the most tenuous fusion, in the manner of water, and demonstrates profound penetration even to the permutability of the ultimate element, regardless of what fusion or melting it may assume in that accomplishment, and it cleaves naturally to its vapor through its affinity and proximity, and, with an inseparable resilience against the impression of the fire, even in its appointed hour reducing bodies spiritually into its own nature. These things being considered, we discover through our investigation 7 necessary and advantageous properties within our stone: oiliness, thinness, affinity of substance, radical moisture, purity, clearness, fixing earth, and tincture. But the first distinguishing property is that oiliness, which gives in projection a universal melting and opening of the medicine. For undeniably, the sudden and expedient fusion of the medicine is chiefly necessary following the projection of the medicine, an act accomplished and commingled with natural oiliness. The second is the tenuity of the matter or the spiritual subtlety thereof, remaining tenuous and fluid in fusion, akin to water penetrating to the very depths of the substance undergoing alteration, because secondly after the fusion of the medicine, its ingression becomes immediately necessary. The third is the affinity or proximity between the elixir and the substance destined for transmutation, yielding a certain adhesion or cohesion upon encountering its akin counterpart, because thirdly after the ingression of the medicine, such adhesion or cohesion is both advantageous and necessary. The fourth comprises radical moisture and fiery coagulation, and hardening the refined components through the adherence of their kindred elements and with an indissoluble union of all similar parts, because fourthly after the adherence or cohesion, the hardening or solidification of the components via its radical and viscous moisture is advantageous and necessary. The fifth is purity and mundified clearness, bestowing a preeminent brightness and splendor during the present combustion, not upon those elements conjoined after the hardening of the remaining purified parts, because the active and actual fire must possess sufficient potency to incinerate all extraneous and hardened superfluities, wherefore putrefaction follows immediately and is exceedingly necessary. The sixth is the fixed earth, temperate, tenuous, subtle, resolute, incombustible, granting permanency of fixation, adhering throughout solution, sustaining itself and persevering against the flames, because sixthly, fixation is a requisite following purification. The seventh is the tincture, imparting a brilliant and flawless hue, white and deep crimson, facilitating the lunification and solidification of transmutable entities, because seventhly the precise tincting color or tincture is necessary subsequent to fixation, transmuting any convertible substance into veritable gold and silver, replete with all its definite and recognized distinctions. Calidus the philosopher speaks thus of our water: for it is a fire that incinerates and pulverizes all things. Living silver is vinegar. Socrates in the Tuba. The initial force is vinegar, that is living silver. Tuba. If you place the body upon the fire without vinegar, it shall be immolated, that is without living silver. It is the most caustic vinegar which forms the pure body, without which no coloration may manifest. Take careful note that within the art of our magistery, nothing is concealed by the philosophers, except the core secret of the art, which it is unlawful to reveal to any man, for whoever should dare to do so would be accursed, and incur the righteous indignation of the Lord and perish from the palsy. Consequently, all error resides within the practice of the art, because practitioners fail to extract the proper matter from it, therefore employ reverent nature. Of it, by it, and within it, our art is engendered, and in absolutely no other thing, and therefore our magistery is inherently a work of nature and not the mere labor of an artisan. Accordingly, he who is ignorant of the beginning does not attain the end, and he who knows not what he seeks is equally ignorant of what he shall find. Know therefore that copper, which constitutes the gold of the philosophers, is indeed their gold, yet Senior proclaimed our gold is not common gold. And you have pursued the greenness, presuming that copper was a leprous body on account of the very greenness which it possesses. Whereupon, I declare unto you that all that is perfect within copper resides exclusively in that greenness which is in it, because that greenness is by our magistery swiftly transmuted into our most pristine gold. And this we have empirically proven, but you can by no means prepare the stone without the green and liquid dunec, which is observed to grow within our minerals. O blessed greenness which engenders all things! You are aware that no vegetable nor fruit appears in its growth, but it is of a verdant hue. Understand therefore that the generation of this substance is green, wherefore the philosophers have called it their growing or springing. And likewise, they have named it the water of their purification or putrefaction, and they spoke the truth, because it is purified by their water or cleansed from its blackness. It is washed and rendered white and subsequently red. Acknowledge therefore that there exists no true tincture, but of our copper. Decoct it therefore with its soul, grind it, and proceed in this manner, until the spirit is conjoined with its body and united as one, and you shall achieve your desire. The wise men have bestowed numerous appellations upon it, but consider you only of that matter which adheres to living silver and to the bodies, and you shall attain true knowledge and science. But that you may not err, understand therefore what it signifies to adhere to the bodies. Some have asserted that common living silver adheres to the bodies, which is fundamentally false. For they presume to comprehend Geber's chapter concerning living silver, wherein he states, when we search among other things, we discover through our inquiries nothing to be more amicable to the nature of bodies than living silver. But all this must be understood as referring strictly to the philosophical living silver, for it alone adheres to the bodies, and the ancient philosophers could discover no other substance capable of such adhesion save for the philosophical living silver, because common silver does not adhere to the bodies, but rather the bodies cleave and adhere to the living silver. And experience validates this truth, because if common living silver is conjoined with any body, the living silver remains in its original nature, or evaporates and does not transmute the body into its own nature. And therefore, it does not adhere to the bodies, but the bodies cleave and adhere to it. And on account of this many men are deceived when laboring with that common living silver, because it is evident our occidental stone exceeding living silver, which has exalted itself above gold and ultimately conquered it, is the very agent that kills and subsequently brings to life once more. Recognize therefore that living silver coagulated and mortified within its own nature is the father of all the miracles inherent to our magistery, and it acts as both a spirit and a body, that is a spiritual body, because it ascends through sublimation. And this reflects Geber's assertion that the contemplation of the true entity which accomplishes all things is intrinsically tied to the selection of the pure substance of living silver, but the specific source from which this substance of living silver may be chosen must be diligently sought after. In answer, we declare that it is chosen from among those very things wherein it naturally resides. Therefore, my son, consider carefully and discern where that substance lies, and take that and none other if you truly desire to achieve genuine understanding. I declare unto you, in the charity of Christ, that neither we nor the ancient philosophers could ever discover anything that perseveres and abides within the fire, save for that unctuous, perfect, and combustible moisture. When this moisture is prepared as it ought to be, it elevates all bodies it touches to the most authentic perfection of gold, surpassing all other bodies, and most particularly that of the moon. The root of the art is the soap of the wise, serving as the mineral of all salts. It is termed bitter salt because it originates from the mineral of the sea, and it is sharper than all salts of its kind. Bodies and spirits are calcined by means of it, and the resolutions and coagulations of the elixir are accomplished with it. Geber. Note this, that no silver can be produced unless all substances are first entirely dissolved. Secondly, that no solution ought to be undertaken except in the proper and appropriated blood, which is the water of mercury, known as dragon's water. Thirdly, that no dragon's water should be distilled through an alembic without the addition of any other substance, and its creation is accompanied by a profound stench. Fourthly, that with this body of water, an amalgam may be dissolved, alongside a body, a spirit, and, in brief, all things generally that partake of its nature. Fifthly, that this water must remain pure and immaculate, and therefore must only be derived from a purged dragon. Let the dragon be purged by elevating it 3 times, and subsequently by reviving it. Sixthly, that the dissolved matter must be purified within a warm and moist environment, namely in horse dung. From this, a singular blackness arises. Seventhly, that it must be coagulated in the dry sun, within such moisture as is found in the Balneo Maria. Eighthly, that the time required for the perfection of the elixir is less than 1 year. Nevertheless, we must ensure it corresponds to the period of human gestation within the mother's womb. Ninthly, that mercury is by no means extinguished, but rather, through the essence of the body, is perfected, red unto red and white unto white. Furthermore, so that the body may impart weight while retaining its own, there are 4 elements by which our work is accomplished: weight, fire, body, and spirit. Tenthly, that no revived entities are to be rejected within the art. 11thly, once the substance is prepared and placed within the vessel, the process becomes akin to women's work and children's play, for the magistery may be accomplished in a single vessel. Likewise, whosoever possesses true mercury possesses the elixir as well, because the elixir is mortified mercury, or mercury fixed by the essence of the body, for the dragon perishes only alongside its brother and sister. Note similarly that mercury must be derived entirely from the body. That is, the fixed must be rendered volatile by means of the volatile, which is pure mercury. It is requisite that the volatile exceed the fixed, ranging from 2-fold to 5-fold to 6-fold and up to 10-fold, but no further. The greater the proportion of volatile parts, the more gradually they are fixed, and the fixed is rendered volatile within the span of 1 month. Note further that the elixir cannot manifest unless both body and spirit traverse all the elements. That is to say, they must pass through the natures of all elements, first becoming earth, then air, which is vapor, thirdly water, and fourthly fire. For everything is deemed fire that does not flee from the fire, nor diminish or consume within it. He who seeks to uncover the secret of this art must comprehend the first matter of our bodies, for otherwise he shall expend his labor in vain. The first matter of bodies is not common mercury, but rather an unctuous and moist vapor. From this moisture the mineral stone is formed, and from its unctuousness the metallic body. It is fitting that the bodies be converted into such an unctuous vapor. During this conversion the bodies are slain, and the seed grain of the body is overcome by death and entirely mortified, a feat accomplished by the aid of our white and red water. Understand this: unless the grain of corn, that is, the grain of the body, is cast into the earth, which is its first water, an unctuous vapor, or the mercury of the wise and of the philosophers, a vapor referred to in various chapters as the known stone, the beginning of the matter of our operation, and the unctuous sulfur from which the quintessence is extracted. In its consummation, mercury tinctures every body into the sun and the moon, depending upon the manner in which the stone has been ultimately prepared. Note likewise that, although all the ancient sages of alchemy have discoursed extensively and reached conclusions regarding salt, speaking of the soap of the wise and the key that shuts, opens, and shuts again, without which no man may open, they declare that no man in this world can attain the perfection of this science unless he knows how to calcine salt after its preparation. They stipulate that it must remain in a temperate place for the span of 3 days, allowing the heat of the fire and the fumes to evaporate. Therefore, I conclude from this that every good and perfect medicine of alchemy, be it elixir or powder, must take the form of salt, be salt itself, and possess the virtues of salt, namely, slow fusion and deep penetration when cast upon the bodies of molten or fiery metals. Geber warns us of this when he states, "It is necessary that the medicine possess a more rapid melting point than mercury, so that it may melt before the flight of mercury, and so the fire may neither consume nor destroy it. It is then called fusible salt, incombustible oil, and the soap of the wise." Note similarly that the salt of metals transmutes mercury into true sun and moon, just as the salt of animals transmutes every animal into true temperance and a sound complexion. The fire of dung acts as the active cause in the work of the digestion of our stone. The fire of the Balneo Maria possesses no such efficacy, even though it may be exceedingly temperate in its location. Alphidius: "To decoct in fire that which I shall reveal to you is to bury it in moist horse dung. For the fire of the wise is moist and obscure, warm in the 2nd degree and moist in the 1st. The unique property of this fire is that it does not destroy the oil, which is the substance. Rather, it augments it by virtue of this temperate moisture, because only such heat is equal and temperate, making it profoundly necessary for the generation of that entity." Geber: "Because the fumes are exceedingly subtle and require a temperate decoction so that they may thicken within themselves, relying upon equality. For temperate heat alone serves as the thickening of moisture and the perfection of the mixture, without exceeding its bounds. Indeed, the generation and procreation of natural things have customarily been accomplished through the most temperate and equal heat, just as horse dung alone provides both moisture and warmth." Hermes, the 4th book of treatises. "It behooves him who would enter into this art and its secret wisdom to repel the vice of arrogance, becoming instead virtuous, honest, and profound in reason, courteous toward his fellow men, possessing a merry and pleasant countenance, patient, and a faithful concealer of secrets. My son, above all things, I counsel you to fear God, in whom the oversight of your disposition rests, and from whom comes the aid of all things sequestered from you. Geber, the Book of Perfect Magistery. It is imperative for the artificer of this science to possess the most subtle intellect, and to know and understand the natures of metals, their generations, as well as the infirmities and imperfections inherent in their minerals, before he may approach this art. Let no practitioner seek out this art if he is burdened with a gross and dull intellect, or if he is miserly and covetous in his expenditures. Nor should any man of a duplicitous or volatile mind, whether overly exalted or captious, attempt it. Rather, it requires a son of learning, imbued with a subtle and judicious intellect, one who is sufficiently prosperous, bountiful, healthful, firm, and constant in his purpose, patient, gentle, enduring, and temperate. Aufidius. Know, my son, that you cannot obtain this science until you purify your mind before God, and until God knows you to possess a steadfast and upright spirit. Only then will he elevate you to reign and rule over the world. Aristotle. If God knew there resided a faithful mind within man, he would then reveal this secret unto him. The correction of the ignorant. It is essential for every art to imitate the scoria and to comprehend the nature thereof, and thus art imitates its nature. Know, ignorant man, that through art, nature itself is understood and cannot be amended. Of necessity, the follower of nature must arrive at the perfect conclusion of the secrets of the philosophers. Hermes and Geber. He who shall once bring this art to its full consummation, even if he were to live 1,000 years and nourish 4,000 men each day, should never experience want. Senior. He is so abundantly wealthy who possesses the stone from which the elixir is fashioned, as he who possesses fire may bestow it upon whomsoever he desires, whenever he desires, and in whatever measure he desires, without any peril or deprivation unto himself. The table of the greater science. First, the true matter is possessed within our green lion, along with its specific color, and it is called a drop, azoth, or dunec virid. In the second, it is likewise established, as in the third chapter, how bodies are dissolved into philosophical living silver, which is the water of our mercury, and it is forged into one new body. In the fourth, the putrefaction of the philosophers is attained, which has never been witnessed in our days, and it is called sulfur. In the fifth, it is revealed how the greater part of this water is transformed into the black and feculent earth whereof all philosophers speak. In the sixth, it is shown how that black earth stood at the beginning above the water, and how, by gradual degrees, it has been submerged at the bottom of the vessel. In the seventh, it is detailed how that earth is dissolved once more into water possessing the color of oil, and it is subsequently called the oil of the philosophers. In the eighth, it is recounted how the dragon is born in his blackness and is nourished by his mercury, and how he slays himself and is drowned therein. The water then becomes somewhat whitened, and that is the elixir. In the ninth, it is explained how the water is wholly purified from its blackness, remaining the color of milk, and how manifold colors manifest within the blackness. In the 10th, it is described how those black clouds, which lingered in the vessel above the water, descended into the body from whence they originated. In the 11th, it is revealed how those ashes are rendered most white, akin to glistening marble, and that is the white elixir, and the augmentation is ashes. In the 12th, it is disclosed how that whiteness is converted into a redness akin to a ruby, and that is the red elixir. And if you would comprehend the entire work perfectly, then read one portion after another, and you shall witness miracles. I have beheld all these things in my days, even unto the lion. I have not spoken of all matters which appertain to and are necessary for this work, for there exist certain things of which men may not speak. Moreover, it is impossible to understand this art unless it be revealed by God, or by a master who may reach him. Know also that this is a profoundly lengthy path. Therefore, patience is an absolute necessity in this, our magistery. Living silver is common salt. Rosarius. Common salt dissolves gold and silver, and it augments the redness in gold and the whiteness in silver. Furthermore, it transmutes copper from its corporality into spirituality, and therewith are bodies calcined. Light of lights. Had the omnipotent God not created this salt, the elixir could never have been actualized, and the study of alchemy would have been naught but wasted labor. Note this well. There exist 4 mercuries: crude mercury, sublimed mercury, mercury of magnesia, and unctuous mercury. Yet mercury is replete with the moon, the mercury of the philosophers, which is the substance wherein the mercury of the philosophers is contained. And it is that which nature has but scarcely worked and fashioned into a metallic form, and yet has left imperfect. Thus, we must observe that it is such a substance which is termed the middle of ingression, being neither entirely perfect nor altogether imperfect. Because from nothing, nothing can be made, and because nature has not completed its work therein, the artisan may therefore elevate it from imperfection to perfection by assisting nature itself. And that is called the stone of invisibility, the holy stone, the blessed thing. Geber. Living silver possesses no adustion. Therefore, its purification is a renewal of its earthiness and wateriness by stratagem, which, if it be pure, shall coagulate that strength of white sulfur, unburning, into silver. This is so excellent a substance that, through skilled workmanship, the elixir for silver may be fashioned from it. However, if it be an excellent red sulfur of an unburning nature, then it is so remarkable a substance that the elixir for gold may be forged from it. Such sulfur is our sulfur, and the sulfur of the wise, and it is not discovered upon the earth unless it be extracted from these bodies. Arnaldus. The sulfur which is concealed within living silver is a substance that imparts a golden form to that living silver, by virtue of the color of its outward mineral sulfur. Avicenna. Such sulfur is not to be found upon the earth, save for that which resides within bodies. Therefore, let these bodies be subtly prepared so that we may obtain sulfur upon the earth. For a perfect body, through our magistery, aids and brings to fruition an imperfect thing, without the admixture of any other force or foreign substance. Otherwise, the sulfur, of whatsoever kind it may be, will hinder the true melting, as is manifest in iron, which melts not because it is known to contain fixed sulfur. And even though it be not fixed but yields to proper melting, it is nevertheless hindered and consumed by the fire, and evaporates away, as is evident in lead and other infirm bodies. Therefore, common sulfur is not of the truth of our art, nor of its perfection, because it impedes the perfect in all its operations. Geber. Sulfur can never be fixed unless it is first calcined, and once it is calcined, it yields neither fusion nor melting. Senior. Sulfur and arsenic are not the true medicines of this magistery, for they neither accomplish nor effect the work fully, as has been sufficiently observed concerning all the lesser minerals. Albertus. The intrinsic property of sulfur is to congeal mercury and to bring it to fruition or perfect it with mercury. However, the tincture consists solely of two perfect bodies from which those sulfurs may be selected. The philosopher. The foundation of this art is the sun and its shadow. Morinus. 3 forms suffice for the entire magistery. The white fume, which is the primary force, that is to say, celestial water, the green lion, which is the copper of Hermes, and the stinking water, which is the mother of all metals, of which, by which, and with which the philosophers prepare the elixir in the beginning and at the end. Therefore, conceal from no man these 3 forms unto the perfection thereof. Yet a fool mishandles this magistery with every other substance. Hermes. Philosophy possesses 3 parts, namely the sun, the moon, and Mercury. From these being united together, Father Hermes knew how to formulate the tincture. Johannes of Aquino. He who knows not the destruction of gold cannot know the creation thereof through the necessary course of nature, so that it is vastly easier to forge gold than to destroy it. But he who believes he can bring the tincture to its desired end without these things proceeds blindly in practice, much like an ass to its supper, because a body passes not into a body, nor does a spirit pass into a spirit, for form receives neither the impression of form, nor matter the impression of matter. Like possesses neither action nor passion upon its like, when neither is more worthy than the other, because like holds no rule or governance over its like. Aristotle. There is no true generation save among things that agree in nature, because actions are only accomplished in accordance with their inherent nature. For the willow never brings forth pears, nor the bush fine pomegranates, neither can an evil tree produce good fruit. The philosopher. Our mercury is converted into every nature or natures with which it may be joined or coupled. The philosopher. He who knows how to destroy gold, so that it shall be gold no more, attains unto the greatest secret. Another philosopher. It is an arduous endeavor for gold to be destroyed, yet exceedingly more difficult for it to be created. It is far easier to destroy it accidentally than essentially. Gold is entirely mercury, a truth made manifest by its weight, as well as by the effortless amalgamation of that mercury. Therefore, the absolute and fundamental intention of the philosophers resides therein, for it has acquired these virtues and excellences through the aid of celestial heat and the motion of the planets, which by themselves are impossible to augment. However, an artisan, should he commence this work, may attain all these qualities within mercury through profound meditation, the assistance of fire, and astute policy, which serves as the alleviator of labor. Albertus. It is evident that an abundant quantity of living silver is the cause of perfection within bodies, whereas excessive sulphuriety is the root of imperfection and corruption. Euclides. We ought not to labor upon anything save the sun and mercury conjoined, of which the stone of the philosophers is constituted. From perfection nothing is created, for it is already perfect, as is exemplified by bread. Leavened bread is perfect in its state and essence, having reached its ultimate conclusion. Neither can further leavening be derived from it, just as it is with gold. Pure gold is reduced, through the trial of fire, into a firm and fixed body, and it is impossible for the philosophers to ferment or leaven with it any further, unless the primary matter of metals is obtained, wherein gold may be resolved into its initial matter and into the commingled elements. Let us, therefore, take that matter from which gold shall be forged, and, through the aid of craftsmanship, let it be brought into the true ferment of the philosophers. Thus, by prudent policy, we may transmute this into a flawless substance, or into the spirit of perfect bodies. For this reason, Many philosophers laboring herein are continually deceived, as they abandon the work precisely where it ought to be commenced. O ye sons of learning, who hope to gather the fruit before it is ripe, and desire to reap before the harvest arrives. Another philosopher, from that which is perfect, nothing can be wrought or created, because the perfect forms of things are not altered in their nature, but rather corrupted. Nor, from a thing that is entirely imperfect, can anything be fashioned according to art. The reason is that art cannot induce the initial dispositions. Rather, our stone is an intermediary entity between perfect and imperfect bodies, and that which nature herself has commenced is brought to culmination by art. And should you begin to labor upon Mercury itself, where nature has left it incomplete, you shall discover perfection and rejoice. That which is perfect is not altered, but is corrupted. However, an imperfect thing may be effectively transformed. Therefore, the corruption of one entity is the generation of another. Speculum. Our stone must necessarily be extracted from the nature of two bodies before the realization of the elixir can be achieved from it. It is imperative that the elixir be more rigorously purged and digested than gold or silver, for it must wholly convert the substance from its diminished perfection into the gold or silver of the philosophers, a feat those metals alone cannot accomplish. For if they were to impart their perfection unto another, they would themselves remain imperfect, seeing as they can only tincture to the extent that they manifest themselves. For nothing whitens save in accordance with its own whiteness, nor does anything redden save in accordance with its own redness. Therefore, following this principle, the operations upon our stone are executed so that the tincture within it may be elevated beyond its natural state, and that the elixir may be formulated, according to the allegory of the wise, from pristine forms, treacle, medicine, and the purgation of all bodies, destined to be purified and transmuted into authentic silver and gold. Hermes. The conjunction of two bodies is thus achieved, and it is an absolute necessity within our magistery, and were but one of our two bodies present within our stone, it would by no means ever impart a tincture. Therefore the philosopher declares, "The wind hath carried him in its belly," whereby it is manifest that the wind is the air, and the air is the life, and the life is the soul, that is to say, oil and water. Arnoldus. Practical trial dictates the gradations concerning the moderate application of fire, for during dissolution the fire must always be gentle, in sublimation moderate, in coagulation temperate, continuous during whitening, and fierce in rubefaction. Yet, if you err through ignorance in these matters, you shall frequently lament your harsh misfortune and squandered labor. Therefore, it is imperative that you diligently pursue the work, since art is aided by policy, and policy equally by art, devoting your attention solely to its accomplishment, and allowing all other matters to pass. St. Thomas of Aquinas. The substance of the stone is a viscous water, whereas heat or cold serves as the agent that congeals said water. And rest assured that those stones which proceed from animals are infinitely more precious than any others. Light of lights. No variety of stone can be prepared without dunec, the green and liquid, because it possesses great force and is engendered within our minerals. Rhasis. My son, behold the most exalted worldly things, which emanate from both the right hand and the left, and ascend thither to where our stone is discovered, upon that mountain which brings forth all manner of sulfurs, forms, and likewise minerals. Malchimec. The stone required for this endeavor originates from a living entity. You shall find this stone everywhere, in plains, upon mountains, and within the waters, and both the impoverished and the wealthy possess it. It is at once the most inexpensive and the most exceedingly dear. It flourishes from flesh and blood, and it is profoundly precious to the man who holds it and comprehends its nature. The philosophers have declared that our stone is composed of a spirit, a soul, and a body, and they speak the truth. Do you want access to this and all the complete audiobooks on the channel, plus the ebook version? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code in the left corner of the screen to access our library, where you can listen to your favorite esoteric books without ad interruptions, lock your screen, or use other apps while the narration plays, and even download the ebook version to follow along as you listen. Listen on your computer via web browser, or download the app from the Play Store. After subscribing, you will receive an email with your login details, password, and step-by-step instructions on how to access the books through the Hotmart app.